is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Okay, folks, before we go on to taking a look at what I feel happened to John F. Kennedy and the real reason why that he's dead, I want to examine, sorry about that, I want to examine very closely the rifle that they said that killed John Kennedy. And they proclaim that this gun was bought by Lee Harvey Oswald, and they say that he ordered it through the mail and picked it up, I think through Sears or something, which back in those days you could do guns that way. Even back in the early 80s, around 1980 and stuff, you can order guns through the mail. You can't do that now. You've not been able to do that for some years, but back in those days you could. Now, this 6.5 by 52 Carcano, this was an Italian gun. And if you really don't know what to look at, you can really get a lot of misconceptions about this rifle. Now, in the days that we live in, this gun can easily be confused with the 6.5 Swede. It can easily be confused with the 6.5 Grendel. And it can easily be confused with the 6.5 that you can actually buy today and how it's loaded versus how it was loaded back in those days and what was available to the public. Now, there's probably not too many of you know this, but back in those days, even the ammunition that was made around 1940, 1941, that was not available to the public at that time. What they had made available to the public and had released was ammunition that was no longer currently being used by any military, and that's why they released it to the public, because it's not. And that was the old World War I ammunition, okay, that was used back in World War I. Because this gun was first devised back in the 1800s. See, look at this right here. It'll tell you that this gun was actually devised. See here? 1891. 1888 to 1891 was when it was first devised. And from that point up until World War I was the ammunition that Oswald would have had available to him, okay? So, given the fact that we know that, that would have to be the ammunition that you would have to take a look at and say, is what they say feasible in comparison to what it did? And I'm just going to tell you, me and a friend of mine, back when I was around 19, 20 years old, his name was Michael, and he is a ballistics expert. He really is. About the best that I know. If anybody from back home is watching this, they're going to know who that is. But I'm not going to say his last name, but his name was Michael. And he's a gun crazed man. He's been that way his whole life. Reloading and ballistics and this and that, and it just goes on and on. But we took some of the ammunition that would have been available to Oswald, and we went and we conducted some ballistic tests for how far that they said the motorcade was in Dallas versus how far they said that this shot was fired with the 6.5 52 Carcano, a model 91 Italian, and at that time, stuff like this was not available. This is new stuff. The only thing that would have been available to him would have been old World War I ammunition. Now, how many of you know that the 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 powder back in those days, folks, the same amount of powder that would have filled this cartridge up to a given amount of length, up into the back of the bullet, would not have produced a compression that World War II ammunition would have, let alone ammunition of today. It was slow burning powder. It was somewhere between what they used in the Old West days and what they used in World War II. And you couldn't get the kind of compression out of that type of ammunition that you could the World War II ammunition, or especially ammunition of today. Now, the way they've got that gun set up today, it's a force to be reckoned with. But then again, they've done everything that way, folks. Used to a 30-30 Winchester didn't have much to it, and now you can buy that Lever Revolution ammunition for Hornady, and it's completely revolutionized the 30-30 Winchester. Now all of a sudden you've got something that would have dropped 11 inches at 100 yards, now all of a sudden it's dropping 1 inch at 200 yards. You know, that's the difference, or 250 yards with a 30-30. So that's the difference. But if you're going to take a look at reality when it comes to this, what you have to do is you have to take a look realistically at what was available at that time that Oswald could have got his hands on to have done this with. And so the test that we conducted was that type of ammunition. Old World War I ammunition that he was able to get a hold of online specifically. And folks, I'm going to tell you something. The conclusion that we came to, between he and I both, and especially him, which I respected his opinion, he knows more about this than I do. He said, Jerry, there's absolutely no way whatsoever that old World War I round that had that slow burning powder in it, that was corrosive, had corrosive primers in it, could have ever done that kind of damage to John F. Kennedy's head at that length. You had to have a certain amount of pressure, folks, to equal out that kind of damage, because this round blowed his head off, literally, folks. It didn't just enter in and kill him, it literally blowed his head off. It blowed pieces of his brains, man, onto his wife. It blowed pieces of his brains out in the streets. At the 300 and some yards that it was supposed to have done this at, the World War I ammunition that would have been available to Oswald to do this, there's no way that it had that much knockdown power at that amount, at that distance, to equal up to the damage that was done to his head. Absolutely no way. No way whatsoever, folks. And so that's the big misconception about today when it comes to this, is people are looking at this round and they're like, well, you know, it shoots pretty hard, or, you know, this 6.5 Grendel they made, it shoots hard, or this 6.5 Italian that was replaced, that shoots hard, or this new ammunition that comes out, that this 6.5 52 Carcano, it shoots hard. Well, it all does. And it probably all is sort of in the realm of being capable of doing what happened to John Kennedy. But that's not reality, folks. The reality of the entire situation is this. What he could get a hold of at that time, and what he shot, supposedly John Kennedy with, is what you have to realistically go by. And what he realistically got a hold of was not capable of doing what it did. That bullet went all the way down, guys, to very low foot-pounds at that distance. I mean, it was lucky to, I don't know, it would have been lucky. It would have went through one side of a barrel, maybe. I'm serious. It was just literally just flying at that time. It lost all the pressure it had after 125 yards. And that's all he had available to him. Because when they release this military ammunition to the public, the reason why they're doing that is they're no longer using it, and it's just warehouse stock at that point in time. And the only thing they had declared with the Carcano is not usable at that time was the slow burning powder from the 1800s to World War I. So that's all that Oswald could have got a hold of. So there's no way whatsoever that he killed John Kennedy with this gun at the length that they said that he did, because it could not have created that kind of damage. Now, you're going to say, Jerry, who did kill him? Well, it really doesn't matter, folks. The bottom line is he's dead. So why does it matter how many shooters they were or whatever? The bottom line is he's dead, okay? I think there was multiple shooters. But to sit and conjure on that is really to get away from the, realistically, the true matter behind why that he was killed. And that's more important than how many shooters there were. Bottom line is, guys, he's in the grave. It doesn't matter if there was 2 shooters or 5 shooters. What matters is who did it. And that's what we're going to examine right here. Okay, hang on. You know what, folks? This just goes to show you all the more just how dishonest that the internet is anymore. You can't go by anything the internet has to say anymore. It's nothing but liars. Anyway, your Federal Reserve banknote is made in Switzerland. And you can't get this thing here to tell you that at all, hardly anymore. It's the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, the Schiffs, J.P. Morgan, Merrill Lynch. Those are the ones, folks, that owns the Federal Reserve Bank. Now take a look at this. It says the Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, and Swiss National Bank announces expansion. What do you mean? The Swiss Bank and the Federal Reserve Bank is the same thing. See, the liars, man. Your reality has been altered, folks. Look at this. Swiss 100 billion to be installed in climate push. But anyway, your money's being printed in Switzerland, and it has been for years, okay? The Federal Reserve banknote has nothing whatsoever to do with the federal government in the United States of America. It's the bankers of the Swiss folks that does this, okay? That's who prints your money. And when they tell you that we're in debt X number of dollars to the Federal Reserve Bank, like 300 and some billion trillion dollars or whatever they say, this is the people that they say we're in debt to. You know. Same people giving you your COVID shot right now too, okay? And I don't know how many of you know this, but let's see. Why are Switzerland's foreign assets so low? The growing financial exposure of small open economy, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The Federal Reserve Bank is not owned by New York. The Federal Reserve Bank is owned by the Swiss of Switzerland. You see how it lies, people? Liars. But anyway, one thing you didn't hear John F. Kennedy say is not only did he denounce the secret societies, but he also made a speech, and it's been erased everywhere. I can't find it anywhere at all, but it happened. That he said he was going to take the money that we are spending here in the United States, and he was going to take it and do away with a foreign country supplying us with that money, and we were going to start printing our own money here in the United States. Okay? That's what he said. And the money was being printed in Switzerland, folks. And so now you're getting closer to the truth. And I'm telling you the truth. Hang on. Look at this, folks. I put enough information in, I forced it to tell the truth. And it wouldn't do it a minute ago. Look. The U.S. Federal Reserve is a privately owned, controlled bank by the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, and prints money by the U.S. government. Hang on there one moment. Okay, I had to keep this going, but there you go, folks. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the Morgans, and prints money for the U.S. government. The true power of the Rothschilds goes far beyond the banking empire. They are also behind all wars since Napoleon. I finally forced it through enough information being in there that it was either going to flat out lie to me, but guess what, folks? If I didn't know what to punch in there, it never would have told me that. Okay? Does the Rothschild family control the world money supply? Here is the truth, yeah. Yeah, you ought to look into that one, folks. There's you a place to go to look at that. Idapod.com, RothschildFamily.com/company. See, a good place to go to for that. But see, it wasn't going to tell me this unless I knew what to punch in. I already knew it. Alright, hang on there. You know what, folks? It doesn't matter what anybody says or what organizations was involved, which all of them are pretty much involved in corruption of this bunch. You could say, well, Jerry, that some of the government had him killed or Russia had him killed. Number one, Russia had nothing to do with this whatsoever. Just like Osama bin Laden didn't have anything to do with 9/11. These are the same people that done your 9/11 that killed John F. Kennedy. Same people. I promise you it is. All controlled by England, the Crown, the Rothschilds and Rockefellers of Switzerland, which, by the way, run your government. If you think you're free and you think you're electing presidents, yeah, you put yourself in a world of delusions. What you put yourself into, you put yourself into the matrix for the sheep, because it's never been that way, folks. Every American president that you ever had has been a member of these people. So you really think you elected them? And every one of those presidents has had blood lineages to a royal king of some kind. I guess that's just an accident, isn't it? Telling you the truth, guys. My grandmother used to hang a picture up on her wall of John F. Kennedy. She was really fond of him. And folks, I'm going to tell you something. If it came right down to it, I would have to say that that's probably the only president that we had that I would do the same for. Because the rest of them have all been tricksters, deceivers. I don't care how charismatic their speeches were. I don't. They all belong to this. And ultimately, this is what has controlled your country. And ultimately, this is the reason why that John F. Kennedy got killed. Because he wanted to do away with the secret societies, and he wanted to do away with the Federal Reserve banknote in Switzerland and move it back here to the United States. And so now you know. Thank you for watching my video, folks.